Hello book besties, welcome to my September wrap up. Today I'm going to be going through all the books that I read in the month of September. Before we get into the wrap up, I want to say thank you so much for 3,000 subscribers. I recently hit 3k and I am just so excited and so thankful to every single one of you guys who've subscribed, supported my channel. It seriously means the entire world to me. If you're new here and this is your first video that you're watching from me, hello, my name is Mariam. I do a lot of fun bookish content here on my channel, but I also do lifestyle and home related content as well. So if that's something that you're into, definitely consider subscribing. With that being said though, I'm going to go through my reading stats for the month and then I'll show you guys the books that I read in September. I read 11 books, which equaled to 4,455 pages, and my top 3 moods for this month were emotional, light-hearted, and adventurous. I don't normally get the adventurous mood, so that was fun, a little bit different, probably because I did read a little bit of fantasy this month. My top 3 genres ended up being contemporary, young adult, and romance. And my average rating for this month was 3.89 stars, so my lowest rated books were 3 stars and my highest rated was 5 stars. So we did have a 5-star read for this month. I also did do a reread this month too, so you'll find out what that book is. Those were my stats for the month. Let me know what your favorite book you read this month was, or what you're hoping to read in the month of October. So I finally read Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo earlier this year, absolutely loved it, fell in love with TJR's writing. So super excited to read Daisy Jones, especially because it is fully written as dialogue. I actually read this book while listening to the audiobook, and that was an entirely incredible experience. Like in the audiobook, every single character has a different voice actor. So it kind of felt like I was listening to a podcast from my favorite band. Like, it was so cool. So this is the story of Daisy Jones and the Six, who were a very popular band back in the 70s, but they broke up around like the late 70s, and this is basically like an interview of their story, how they formed their band, their rise and fall, their music, where they are now, what made them fall apart. All of that is basically in this book, and I don't know how Taylor Jenkins Reid does it, but I really felt like Daisy Jones and the Six were a real rock band. Like, I just wanted to get on Spotify and listen to their music, and after I read this book I was like, damn, they're not even a real band. But I highly recommend listening to the audiobook while reading this because it seriously feels so real. I ended up rating this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then we've got Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This was on my TBR for the past 2 months, and I am so happy that I finally got around to reading it. This is the story of Alex and Ava. It is brother's best friend, grumpy sunshine, although I would say Alex isn't necessarily grumpy per se. He's just like no emotions kind of guy, at least for the majority of this book anyway. He hates pretty much everyone, is very alpha male kind of vibe, and Ava's brother is going away, so he gets Alex to kind of watch over her, make sure she's okay and safe. This is definitely an unpopular opinion, and please do not come for me, but I do not like Alex. I just found his character to be so toxic, like literally walking red flag, and his possessiveness and his kind of like almost cocky attitude was just not a vibe. Definitely gave me sociopathic vibes from him. Wasn't a fan of him, but I did love Ava, especially her character growth through this book. And there was some crazy plot twists in here that I was not expecting. There were some mysteries going on and just some crazy plot twists that happened in this book, which definitely had me hooked. I really like the writing style in this book as well, but I just was not a fan of Alex. But I did give this one 3 out of 5 stars. I am super excited to read the other books in the Twisted series though, because it is following Ava's friends, and I loved Ava and her group of friends. Honestly, their friendship was everything, and I love the other 3 girls as well, so I'm super excited to read their books. This next book was actually my favorite book that I read in the month of September that was not a reread, and that was 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. First of all, let's take a moment to appreciate how stunning this cover is. I am obsessed, but the story is just as beautiful as the cover. This book also kind of gives me Cinderella meets meets Swan Lake vibes. If you love Disney, I feel like you'll definitely like this book because it has a Disney vibe to it. So this is a young adult fantasy. We follow Shiori, who is a princess, and she actually has forbidden magic running through her veins, and she ends up meeting this dragon who is actually teaching her how to use her magic. And when her stepmother finds out that she has magic, she actually ends up putting a curse on Shiori and turning her 6 brothers into 6 crimson cranes. And the Swan Lake aspect of it kind of comes in because her brothers are able to turn back into humans at night, but during the day they are stuck as cranes. And also part of Shiori's curse is that she cannot speak, make a noise, nothing, because the moment that she makes a noise, one of her brothers will die. So this story follows Shiori as she tries to break the curse, turn her brothers back into humans, and return back to her land. This book was so freaking good. I did not see the plot twist coming at all towards the end. I was like shook. I am so excited to pick up The Dragon Promise, which is the second book in the series. I just adored this book so much. It was such a quick, easy read. I loved the writing. I loved the character growth. Also, I really loved Shiori's little sidekick, which was Kiki, her paper crane that she ended up actually turning into a real crane. And yeah, this book was just amazing. I gave this one 4.5 stars. Speaking of Disney Cinderella vibes, the next book I have is Stepsister by Jennifer Donnelly. This is kind of like a Cinderella reimagining, except we are following Isabel, who is one of Cinderella's ugly stepsisters. This book basically kind of picks up after Cinderella gets her happily ever after. This is kind of a book of redemption for Isabel, and we get to follow her story as she tries to change her destiny and also reunite with her true love as well. In this book, I definitely preferred Isabel's love story over Cinderella's love story, just because Isabel's love story was childhood friends to lovers, and it was more than just falling for her beauty because she's considered ugly. But I just loved seeing Isabel's character growth, especially with her ending up with her own happily ever after and becoming so courageous and brave and a real warrior princess. Only thing is, this book was quite long and I did find it hard to get into it at first. The first 150 pages were quite slow, but after you get past that, it gets really interesting. Yeah, I really enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read A Fur Love Story by Lone Lee. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. We follow Bao and Lin. Their parents own competing Vietnamese restaurants and they've been feuding for years. But Lin and Bao are forced to spend time together because they're working on this like a newspaper article together, and they end up falling for each other. And they also go on a hunt to try and find out if the feud between their two families is just about the Vietnamese restaurant or is it something more. This was a cute read, but it was quite average, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next 2 books I read for the Hello Autumn Spring readathon, which I did film a reading vlog for, so if you guys want to check that out, I'll have it linked down below. So for that readathon, I read The Match by Sarah Adams. This is my first Sarah Adams book and I definitely did not disappoint. It is a young adult romance following Evie and Jacob. Evie works for a company called Southern Service Paws, where she matches service dogs with clients, and then she has to match Jacob's daughter Sam with one of their service dogs, and he is a single dad. There's a little chemistry between them, except they don't really get off to a good start at first because they don't get the best first impression of each other. But we've got a meddling daughter because she wants Evie and Jacob to get together, and this was just such a wholesome, feel-good read. I love the relationship between the two, and yeah, this was just a sweet book, and I gave it 4.5 stars. And then the other book that I read for that readathon was A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow by Laura Namey. This book is the perfect book if you are looking for something with cozy vibes, because this book encompasses that perfectly. So this book follows Lila. She is just going through a lot at the moment and her mental health is deteriorating. So her parents sent her to England to spend the summer with some family friends, and there she meets a boy named Orion who is a cute tea shop clerk. And while she's there, she's doing a lot of baking. She's introducing the town of Winchester to a lot of Cuban pastries and cakes, and it is just so good. This book deals with a lot of grief, and I think grief is written in a really good way. The only thing that I didn't really enjoy about this book is the pacing. I feel like the pacing was very slow, and also this book was definitely character based as well. well. There's not really too much plot, but oh my god, all the food talk. You best believe I was craving all the pastries and cakes in this book because I just love books that talk about food. Like, honestly, I gave this book 3.75 out of 5 stars. Then I read 2 books in the Curse Breakers series by Bridget Kemmerer, which is a young adult fantasy. So I read A Curse So Dark and Lonely and A Heart So Fierce and Broken. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. You do need to read these books in order. This is the first book and this is the second book, and there is also a third book which I am yet to read. I don't know if I'm going to end up reading it or not. I feel like I should, but these 2 books I feel like were okay reads, but honestly were kind of disappointing because I thought it was going to be a lot better than what it actually was. I really loved Harper's character, who is basically Belle in these books. She was just such a courageous, strong, brave character. She was never afraid to stand up for herself, and even standing up to the prince himself, and she was just so kind-hearted. Definitely gave me the perfect Belle vibes. I feel like the pacing of these 2 books were quite slow and I wasn't really as invested to the story, so I did get quite bored very easily. I did give both of these books 3 out of 5 stars each. Then I read my first Riley Sager book because I am going to be going on a huge mystery thriller binge next month, and I wanted to read one of his books because I've heard he is like the king of writing thrillers. So my first Riley Sager book that I read was Lock Every Door. So this follows Jules, who gets a job to be an apartment sitter at the Bartholomew, which is a very expensive, high-end private apartment for rich and famous people, and she's getting paid like a lot of money to live at this apartment. But then there are just some weird things happening. One of the apartment sitters disappears one day without any real trace, and she's trying to find out what is happening. I don't know about you guys, but whenever there's like an apartment or a hotel, it's a setting for a thriller, that's already giving me chills. Well, to be fair, I don't really read many thrillers, so it doesn't take much for me to get chills while I'm reading one. I kind of had theories on what was happening at the Bartholomew to make the apartment sitters disappear, but what actually ended up happening was not what I expected at all. I ended up rating this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I remember liking this book, but I found it quite average and nothing really stood out to me to want to rate it any higher, so that's why I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. But I am definitely excited to check out his other books, especially House Across the Lake and Home Before Dark, because I've heard some really good things about those books. But yeah, this was an okay book. I would definitely still recommend it if you are looking at thrillers. The book that I reread this month should come at no surprise because September is back to Hogwarts season, so obviously that meant I had to reread Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This was the first time I read the Mina Lima edition, and the Mina Lima edition was absolutely incredible. It kind of almost felt like I was reading the book for the first time, which is crazy because I have read the Harry Potter books multiple times because I do a reread every single year. But this book is so cool because it has the most beautiful illustrations and it has little like pop-ups as well, which is so cool. Like, it really enhances the reading experience. I love Harry Potter. The whole Harry Potter universe, you guys know, is everything to me. And the last book I read, I actually don't have the physical copy with me because I had to return it back to the library, but that was Twice Shy by Sarah Hoggle. This book was so cute. I love how this book did the Grumpy Sunshine trope. This follows Maybelle, who is very much a daydreamer. She spends pretty much most of her days daydreaming her dream life, except she lives a very mundane life, but that is until she finds out that her great aunt dies and she gets to inherit her estate. But the only catch is she has to share the inheritance with the grumpy groundskeeper named Wesley, and at first they definitely do not get along. It's kind of an enemies to lovers situation at the start, but her great aunt leaves a list of demands that they need to follow where they're kind of forced to spend time together. together. This book has some really great anxiety rep and mental health rep in general, and I really liked it because they mainly focused on anxiety for Wesley, which I feel like majority of the time in books you mainly see the female main character having anxiety, but I really like that this book kind of shares both main characters' experiences with mental health. I definitely recommend this one. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. That is every single book that I read in the month of September. I actually managed to read every single book on my September TBR except for one because I DNF'd that book because I did not like it. So I'm very proud of myself for sticking to a TBR for once in my life. If you guys want to see the books I'm planning to read in October, I'll leave my October TBR link down below. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel down below. I post new videos every single week, and follow me on all my social medias. I'll leave my Instagram, Bookstagram, Goodreads, Amazon wishlist, all that good stuff linked down below too. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!